Hey, it looks like we're live. Hello, everyone. My name is Kristen Lau, and I'm here with the Dream Dirt admin team. We have everybody on here, so hopefully this works for everyone viewing. We'll just take a couple seconds and we'll have everybody on the team introduce themselves, but I just want to let everyone watching know that this is a question and answer session, something pretty informal. So I'll remind you throughout the session, but just drop any land auction, any real estate, any land market questions in the comments, and we'll be sure to answer those as we, go through the next half hour to hour. So let's just have the team introduce themselves, kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis, what our role is, how we help clients. And Jason, if you want to start for us.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Smith, and I fill several roles at Dream Dirt. I was the founder of the company, concept that I started, I don't know, back in the first decade of the new millennium. Around 2005, 2006, our company became a real estate brokerage and auction company, an actual licensed company in 2013, after I'd had about 10 years of experience. So today, my role is land broker. I'm an auctioneer. I manage and oversee the daily operations of the company along with my partner, Tom Bradley. So I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I do just a little bit of everything and have my hands in about every part of it.
Kristen, you're muted. Oh.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nicole Smith. I'm a co-founder along with my husband, Jason, and partners with Tom. And I started my part in Dream Dirt as doing the online portion of it, the bidding platform. So I've done that. And then when we got the experience of that and saw how everything worked, our team sat down together and we came up with the bidding platform first of all, we take bids online that was specifically designed for our farming industry, for our land sales, and as well as our farm machinery. So I take part of that, and we work together with Rachel Hoy, and she does a lot of the background and working with our clients on that part. So, and like Jason, I have my hand in a little bit of everything. Wherever I'm needed most is where I'm at. So currently I'm working on our new platform called We Take Bids, and that works with the personal property, like the stuff that's found inside the homes that we need to clean out, and then those go up for auction or listing. So that's what I'm currently working on right now, and it's been a fun adventure.
Well, as Jason and Nicole has mentioned, I'm Tom Bradley, partners with Jason and Nicole. My venture started off probably around 2014, 2013 with Jason and Nicole. And I had established an auction company here in Madison County where I live. And I was selling livestock and doing hay auctions, and had started becoming very successful in selling machinery. And that's kind of where Jason and I met up, and I really wanted to add something to our auctions that wasn't happening in our community or even in our areas. And Jason was messing with the online bidding. They had a presence doing some stuff with online bidding with they did some machinery type stuff, but not as much as I did. And Jason and I got to talking, and we worked together as our two companies, doing stuff together. Dream Dirt would provide the online bidding, and my company, we had the machinery auctions and stuff, and did the physical legwork of that part of it. At some point, Jason and I got to talking and said, this really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Why don't we become one? And at that point, it was probably about 2015, I believe, we became one. At that point, I became the lead auctioneer for Dream Dirt, doing the physical bid calling for the land auctions that we did. My role from there has evolved a lot. I kind of become the bill payer now, kind of like Jason and Nicole. Whatever needs done, I do a lot of the going out and droning the farms when Jason's busy. I've been pretty much doing the majority of that, a lot of the day-to-day stuff, and handle that. So that's kind of my role in a nutshell.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Lee. I came to Dream Dirt 2 years ago. Before that, I was in the banking industry for 15 years. The last several of those years were in the commercial real estate department, which is where I kind of caught my real estate bug. My role at Dream Dirt, once someone has decided to sell their farm, I will go and collect as much information about the property as I can, and I will get it listed on our website, as well as the MLS sites that we use. And then once that auction is completed, I then come in and prepare the purchase agreement for it and help the transaction through the closing process and kind of facilitate the closing process for the sellers and the buyers.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Hoy. Not only am I a real estate agent with Dream Dirt, but I also work full-time for the company. I'm an online auction coordinator, kind of followed in the footsteps of Nicole, who talked earlier. She's taught me how to clerk all of our online and live auctions that we have. I also help build our online auctions, both land and our farm bid machinery auctions. So I just help build those sites and help bidders get registered, follow up with them, send out invoices, and kind of just control the online auctions. So definitely help Tom, Jason, and Nicole get those items lotted and online, and just watch the auction happen.
Hey everyone, my name is Kristen Lau and I came on with Dream Dirt a little over a year ago. I work as the communications manager and I do on my day-to-day basis, I'm creating flyers for auctions, newspaper ads, drone videos, managing social media, kind of doing all the outward facing things that you hopefully see for our company, you know, doing all the advertising and outreach. And kind of helping the rest of the team with whatever they need, whether it's starting a new project like our seller seminars or helping design some of our ebooks. You know, I do a lot of the kind of artwork and kind of imaging things you see for Dream Dirt. So that's a little bit about the admin team you see here today. We also have numerous farm bid representatives and land real estate agents that you know, are also working remotely. They are spread all over the Midwest, but you get the admin team today. So we're excited to be on this Facebook Live, answering your questions and kind of talking about what we're seeing in the market and land auction space today. So let's start off with something probably everyone is wondering about due to the current events. Can we talk a little bit about how we see the coronavirus affecting land auctions and just the real estate market in general?
Let me go first, Kristen. And I'm not sure that I have a good answer or there really is a good answer to this because all of these really become kind of the crystal ball type answer. We take from our experiences and our knowledge to try and formulate the best answer. I mean, as professionals, that's what we do every day. You know, there's certain ways I can see the current health crisis in America affecting land. But I think that that's more of the, what I call the play farms, the hobby farms, the recreational type farms. And a lot of that really is going to depend on how bad business gets hit. Some of it's going to depend on the stimulus package that comes out to help some of the small businesses. Oftentimes those hobby farms, the deer hunting farms, the recreational farms are often bought by business people that, you know, are looking for a place that they can invest in. As you know, farmland really has three ways of creating income and wealth for people. You've got an annual income, you've got price appreciation, plus any tax benefits that come from that. So oftentimes that can be the case. I think on that end, you have one set or type of farms that, have some potential risk in value loss from this health crisis. Now on the tillable land, I think you're looking at a different animal. We have a lot of adversity right now. We have we followed, a market situation with commodities into this thing, which certainly hasn't helped commodities. Trade has been sort of a mess lately. That said, I don't know any person or demographic on the face of the earth that is more used to adversity than farmers. I mean, just there isn't any. These people deal with, the uncertainties of the world literally every year. Just look at the weather. I mean, nobody knows what the weather's going to do from year to year. Nobody knows what the markets are going to do. And those people, I think, are a little bit less averse to this type of a situation in terms of buying and forward investment with farmland. And I think we saw that yesterday. We had an online land auction that was represented by Rachel, and that was a good tillable farm with an 87.4 CSR, and that farm brought $9,100 yesterday, well into this crisis with the understanding. And we had very active bidding on that. We had a lot of bidders for that farm. That's my take on the current situation.
Does anyone have anything to add to kind of what the land market might do in the coming months?
I traveled across the country really lightly here in the last week and a half since we've kind of been isolated from what's going on, and more visiting with farmers and those type of people, kind of like what Jason talked, and kind of some of the business has not really been for land or anything like that. So I'm meeting up with them, talking machinery or just in passing. And usually before I leave, they ask, what's land doing? And they're all curious, want to know what land's doing. And kind of, I just wanted to add on what Jason said, what we seen yesterday on that tillable farm in Dallas County. And also we're seeing a lot of other reports on really good land prices up in sales that are happening in Northeast and Northwest Iowa. Those values are really hanging in there. I seen one farm, maybe you've seen it too, Jason, an investor buyer from out of state, kind of like what we have seen in the past here. In the last 3 weeks, we had an investor buyer come out of Mississippi that bought a farm.
Yep.
Kind of purely for that return. He got it bought for about a 5% return, and the money he had was earning about 1.5%. So the communication that we had with him, he was like, well, this is a no-brainer. I mean, if I can get a 5% return, I'm gonna try to own this farm. And I think that's what we're seeing is some of that unsurety too in the stock markets. The buying pool is still eager to buy land, I think.
When you look at the current situation in the stock market, Tom, too, I mean, there's certainly some consideration there that farmland's a safer long-term investment, and the stock market's a long-term is a safe investment, but I think there's a lot of fear there right now, what's happening in the stock market. It's, it's not hard to believe that people may take money from the stock market, early on in this and move it over to land or real estate type assets. That's a real scenario that potentially is or could happen pretty easily. So there's a lot of things at play right now in the farmland market.
So I guess kind of going off that in the same vein, when is the best time to sell farmland?
There's not a bad time to sell farmland. And this is something that I've written about and talked about quite a bit. This is, like the number one question that people ask us, when's the best time to sell a farm? There's no bad time to sell a farm. There's no better time of year to sell a farm. Now, depending on what time in the year that you actually sell your farm, there may be some changes to your transaction and how you do things. So let's say, for example, you sell a farm on January 1st. You're outside of the crop season, and let's say that you can give full possession in that particular year. You're selling a real estate asset and you're just selling it straight. There's no changes or anything to the transaction. But let's say that you're selling a farm in July. Say July 1st, you're right in the midpoint of the year. You're in the midpoint of the crop year. At that point, you're probably going to split the income for the year with the buyer. on a 50-50 basis. So kind of depending on where you're at in the crop year, you're typically going to share that. There's no bad time of year as long as your transaction is set up properly and it's fair to the buyer. You will always get full market value for the farm, whether you sell it in January or July.
You know, Jason, I'd add on that too. And last year probably been one of our years where we did a land auction, an online land auction at that too, pretty much every month of the year last year. I think I'm pretty correct in saying that.
Yep.
And, you know, most definitely I'll agree with Jason. There's no wrong time to sell a farm. And what I was getting at with that is we sold farms pretty much every month of the year last year and seen great prices on and results on all those sales. You know, typically we're right now in our peak season of where we sell farms. We see a lot of farms coming to the market, but kind of I'll just add on to what Jason said. We can sell. We have sold the farms that have been planted and so forth like that, and do the proration and stuff on them and sell them. So there's really no bad time to sell a farm.
No, I agree that just as long as the transaction's set up properly and the auction is marketed properly, you're never going to have an issue of not getting it. Now, one thing that I will say that we often hear, and I've been hearing this since I started selling land, is people will sometimes consider selling a farm and then they'll say, well, you know what, we're going to wait till next year and see if things improve. Here's one thing about the real estate and the farmland market: nothing changes fast. It's slow. It's a creep when things change. You know, you can look back to the 80s and you can see when things fell on their face. That's maybe the one example that was a little bit different during the farm crisis, the late 70s leading into the 80s. But in my time in this industry, nothing has ever changed quickly. So I often tell clients, this is my advice. We know where we're at today. If today's prices are acceptable to you, they're not going to change, if hardly any, over the next 60 to 90 days, because it's going to be such a minuscule change. Now you're introducing something unknown into the market, this coronavirus, this health crisis in America. That's something that's completely unknown. It's really hard to see how that's going to affect things long term. But my bet is that it won't, on tillable land, good quality tillable land, it's going to have almost no effect at all. So for those people that are considering selling a farm right now, it's not something to be fearful of, especially when you're using auction marketing. You can use reserves. You have protections in the system to do that. But you know where you're at today. You know what the prices are today. Why wait into an unknown time when you don't know what prices will be? We know what the pattern is right now, and you know what the price is. If that's acceptable enough for you, now is the time to move forward if you're considering selling farmland.
So we actually had a question come in from Facebook from Patrick Clark. He says, "Hi, Jason." He's wondering.
Hi, Patrick. How are you doing?
So Patrick's question is, if you are seeing more corporate farmers buying up land. He's no row cropper by any means, but with land prices being the way they are, he doesn't understand how small row croppers are surviving these days.
So let's talk about corporate farms and what a corporate farm really is, because that term gets thrown around a lot. You know, Tom and I, our entire team, know all kinds of corporate farms, but the problem is what a corporate farm actually is. A corporation is just a tax structure that's no different than an LLC. Dream Dirt Farm and Ranch Real Estate is an LLC. We're a corporation ourselves, yet we're a small company. You see the faces on the screen. These are the people that depend on our business every day. These are our paid full-time employees. And the word corporation does not have to be synonymous with evil. You know, I understand what people want to mean by the word corporation. They want to mean big and evil, but the fact is, the vast majority of farms are corporations. Mom and pop farms are often corporations because it's a tax structure. It's a tax classification that has to be used for them to be able to benefit from tax breaks, or, you know, whatever the reason may be that people would use a corporation. That's just essentially a shell that kind of holds the assets of those particular farmers. That's my take on it. Now, I know what people want a corporate farm to be. They want it to be this, sort of like the television commercials with the factory farms and, thousands and thousands. And, oftentimes we have sold land to those types of companies. But I would still say, and Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't have an exact figure, probably 85 to 90% of the time when we sell farms, it's to a mom and pop type small operation. That's still the number one buyer in the market.
Yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of what you said. I'll reiterate on, Jason, that the tax structure is why they go with cooperation or corporation or an LLC, and those mom and pops have formed those. Myself, I work with an investment group that's a corporation, but their farmland is all ran by mom and pop farm people. The whole family farms this farmland that's owned by this certain investor. So I think that they all tie together in some form. We see a fair amount of investor buyers, but I would agree with you, Jason. We see a lot more of the mom and pop that are getting better off than where they were, and they want to leave something behind for their future and their legacy for those children in the operations with them.
Yeah. The corporate farm is not a bad thing. I understand that everybody wants to believe that, every corporate farm just has this hog house with millions of hogs in it and, all kinds of cattle confined and chicken in 8-inch spaces. It's just not what it is. And that the world's not full of that. You can drive around and see that the world is not full of that. I'm sitting out in the country now. I can't even hardly see a structure because these are all just, they might be owned by corporations, but they're small family corporations. It's just a tax structure. One thing I might say too, we get people that call us and say, I don't want to sell my farm. I want to sell my farm, but I don't want to sell it to this big corporate farms. I don't want to sell it to the corporation farms. And, we use the same type of thing that I just said. And, we explain that to them to make sure that they understand it. But honestly, one of the best places to sell your farm, if you don't want the big farms buying it, is on an auction. That's typically not where they're buying land. They're typically buying land at discounts on private deals, privately negotiated deals. I can think of several large land investing companies that their method of operation is more to go out and find the estates before we get to them and try and negotiate private deals at deep discounts. If you don't want those large farms buying, oftentimes they're not buying on auctions. I'm not saying they don't ever, sometimes they do, but oftentimes they're shy of that because they're investment companies that are looking to turn a profit. They can turn a profit faster and better by buying land at a discount. That's just the way their structure of those types of businesses work. Oftentimes people talk about how they've got investors and all this stuff. Investor purchases of farmland is really low. It's somewhere probably in the 20% range, with 80% going to farmers. So the vast majority of land purchases are still going to farmers.
Something I'd throw in there too, Jason, they talk about the corporate farmers or whatever. But in my area and my surrounding counties that I can actually think of, they're large farmers and they're probably incorporated, but they're feeding 5-6 families. So they got to have a fairly large acres and stuff to do just to all survive when you're providing for that many families.
And Tom, as far as I'm concerned, that's how the whole world has gone. Farming has gotten bigger. Auction companies have gotten bigger. Walmart has gotten bigger. Everything has gotten bigger. And it really comes down to a pretty simple economic principles, the economies of scale. The bigger you are, you imagine going out and buying a $200,000 piece of machinery or several pieces of machinery and owning $1 million worth of machinery. You've got to have a lot of rows of corn to keep that equipment busy to make those payments on those things. And oftentimes big farms have employees and they're still providing for lots of other families. I think that was a good point, Tom, that they are oftentimes feeding lots of different families. You know, a lot of times some larger farms become places where retired farmers, you know, go to work. Those retired farmers are no longer juggling the rigors and the stress of that. They made somebody else's farm bigger, but they were able to keep a stable employment and stable income from that. And that's a really good thing. There isn't any type of business or model in the business world that isn't growing and becoming more efficient. And that's going to continue to happen. It's going to change. You will be able to look back on 2020 and think of this as the good days when there was lots of farms. The number of farms will just continue to decline until, you know, the majority of farms become mega farms. I don't know if that's in 20 years or 70 years or 200 years from now, but that's where it'll eventually go. When you look into the future of how farming will be one day, that's where it's going to be.
You know, and we could talk about this subject all day, you know, Jason, just because
We could.
of where it's going, you know, but it's a lot of what we're saying. And those mom and pop farmers are disappearing very rapidly. The average age of our farmers are kind of in that baby boomer group. And I think a lot of the machinery auctions that we're seeing and stuff that are coming out there, it's not distressed farms, but it's that older generation that doesn't have somebody to step in their place and take their place, that is retiring and selling their machinery and thinking they're better off to rent that land. So that's also how these, you know, those other people that have the 5, 6, 7 people in their family that are farming, they're renting those farms. And, you know, I think that's a lot of what we see too.
Yeah, I really do too. The vast majority of our business, you know, in the land is really estates. It's not so much retiring farmers. There is some of that, a little bit here and there. There's sometimes we deal with the debt issues and stuff, but the vast majority of our business really is estates.
Great. Hopefully that answers your question, Patrick. He also posed one other one. Let's touch on it really quickly. He would like to know what properties you are seeing flip more often.
I can answer a little bit on that. Seems like here lately we've sold a fair amount of pastures. If Jason probably agree, we've sold a lot of pasture this first part of the year, and kind of some pasture hunting type properties.
Yeah, I think that, Patrick, that would be my answers. The majority of them flipper moneymaker type properties tend to be those that I talked about early on, them hobby, recreational, deer hunting type farms. There's money to be made there if you're looking to invest in nice types of things, breaking up some of those farms, improving those farms for better experiences down the road. As you know, oftentimes people will buy them, they'll hold them for 2 to 5 years, and during that time, they'll build history on them. They'll try and build the experience, the deer hunting experience on that. They'll try and protect the age class of deer on those properties, so that they're taking something that was less than what it was, and they're building value into the property. So there's lots of different sub demographics amongst all that stuff. But in the deer hunting crowd, that's really one of them, is building the value into that property over 2 to 5 years, taking the annual income and trying to build in some price appreciation to those things. And so people are very, very successful at doing that. I'll be honest with you, some of that really comes down to, I watch a lot of these people, I know many of them, I've dealt with many of them. It comes down to the ability to tell the story of how you built the value into that, documenting the actual experience along the way, the 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 years, showing how you improved it and telling that story properly. And a lot of people make money selling farms that way or flipping farms, especially those southern Iowa through northern Missouri farms. And of course, it happens all over the United States, but that's where I'm most familiar with that type of activity.
Great. And excuse me. Thank you, Patrick, for the questions. Just to quickly remind everybody watching on Facebook, if you have any questions for our team about anything with the land market, real estate, farmland auctions, even farm equipment auctions, just post those in the comments down below and we'll make sure we answer those for you. So let's move to Nicole and Rachel, if you guys want to field this one. What should sellers do first if they're thinking about possibly selling land down the road?
Rachel, I'll start off and then I'll hand it over to you if that's okay. Okay. So what I recommend is get your information. I mean, selling a farm is a huge thing, you guys. And the best thing you can do is information, information, information. And you want to go to a professional. Okay, so when you're sick and you go to the doctor, everyone wants the best doctor, the one that's known. And you can do that by finding out, first of all, what is this company you're talking to? What's their education? What are the things that they know, you know? What is their history? Can they stand behind it? Can they show me, you know, testimonials from other people and their successes? There's that. Also, I think one of the best things with Dream Dirt is the fact that we offer so much information. We do seminars, webinars to inform our sellers and buyers. We have ebooks that they can download. Kristen or Rachel can get that information to you. And those things have everything you could ever want. It tells you about our auctions, what the process is. It lists everything. So in my opinion, the best thing that you guys can do if you're interested in selling a farm, talk to your professional, gather as much information as you possibly can, because that's something you guys have worked very hard for, and you want to make the best out of what you're trying to get from your farm. Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, going off of what Nicole said, we do have our ebooks. We have a Selling Farm and Land Real Estate ebook. And we also have our online land auctions ebook. We can send them electronically, or we have a few printed copies. So feel free to reach out to any of us, email us, and we'll get you a copy of those. But yeah, if you're thinking about selling your land, just give us a call. Our phones are always available for you to call all hours of the day. We love sharing information. We also love meeting you in person. We can come meet you at your house and sit down and just go through how an auction or a listing thoroughly works, answer all the questions that you have, whether it be 30 minutes, an hour, all morning. We love chatting with our customers and really making sure you understand the whole process.
And maybe the flip side of that is they don't have to meet with us either. I've actually had clients that I've almost never talked to. Tom, do you remember the farm that we sold up in, was it Dickinson County? And we never talked to the client except through emails and text messages.
And we said sold and couldn't get a hold of him, and the landlord, or not the landlord, the tenant said, no, that's normal. That's the same communication I had with him. So absolutely.
Yeah, that was an interesting experience. So, you know, the flip side is true. We don't have to meet with anybody. And oftentimes, I've said this many times, I probably have never met probably 65 to 70% of my clients, because oftentimes they're absentee landowners and they live outside of the state. So both is true. We'll meet you or we won't meet you. It's up to you.
We sold what?
But I do want to throw in a little bit on this answer, Kristen. I missed that, Tom. Tom said something and I apologize. I missed it. But I want to add to Nicole and Rachel's answer. You know, they did a really good job of answering it, but I do want to talk a little bit about kind of what I see as kind of a defining principle of Dream Dirt. And that was that we wanted to be a safe place for people to sell their farms. We wanted to be a place that they could get that information that was really important to them. And we wanted to be that resource that they absolutely could count on. And a part of doing that is we're not farm managers. We don't have any other interest beyond the result of a particular auction. We're not representing the buyers in the auction. We're representing the sellers with seller's single seller agency. And I think that's really one of the defining principles in our company is that we're on the seller's side. We'll always treat buyers fairly, and I wouldn't have it any other way or any different than that. We always will. But we're the one place that the seller can find safety. We're not a big farm management company. We don't have any other interests outside of what we do. And like I said, the result of that particular auction, that's what we're here for. And I think that that's one thing that makes us a really safe choice. I think that's one reason that people have had such good experiences with us and selling with us, and why we get such great reviews when we're finished with them.
And I know you've kind of talked in our ebooks too, Jason, that the best first step when you're even thinking about selling your farm is to not go to the coffee shop and talk about it or throw the idea around with your neighbors, because that information can end up, coming back to harm you if you do go to an auction or if you do try to list it. So I don't know if you want to talk on that a little bit.
You can. So when Nicole said the best thing to do is to talk to a professional, we really mean that. The best thing to do is never to discuss it with your neighbors, with your farmer, with anybody. If you are considering selling a farm, the smartest thing you can do, because there's no obligation, is to talk to a professional. Talk to somebody in the farm business, because they're probably going to give you the advice, never price your farm. Don't start talking now and have that information used against you later on in the process, because it always does. There seems to be a tendency with some people that they kind of want to skip the auction process and the real estate broker and just kind of go straight to the tenant. And then they get to negotiating and all these numbers get thrown around and things get muddied up and things don't work out. And then they come to the auctioneer. Now the auctioneer has all of this information out there floating around the world. They want to do the best they can for their client. But the thing's been priced and it's been pre-negotiated and it's been talked about in the coffee shop and everybody knows this and that, and it's been distorted. The facts have been changed and now it becomes a more difficult job. I suggest that if you want to have the smoothest process, if you want your seller's journey to just sail on through and walk away smiling, call a professional. You can always go out and talk about it and try and negotiate it after you've talked to the professional. There's no obligation in talking to us. You can still go out and do what you wanted to do. Just put them in the reverse order. Come to us first and talk to us. Learn what you should learn first. And if you don't like that information, you can still go out and price it and negotiate with your tenant or with a neighbor or put it on Craigslist and Facebook and do all that you want to do. That still is available to you. But it really, I've seen it hurt so many people. Another real issue, and I'm a little off topic now, negotiating with the tenant is, and I talk about this in our ebooks. If anybody wants our ebooks, they're a really, really good resource. I don't think there's anything else out there in the world like it. It'll give you an education. It's essentially all of our experiences over the years of selling farmland and all the crazy things that can happen and the pits you can fall into. But this is one of them. This doesn't happen often, but it does happen often enough that it's something worth talking about. When some people go to negotiate with a tenant, the tenant will end up agreeing to something, and then they will take the family into the closing process, but then they'll start to change the details on things or come up with things like, well, the bank won't give me as much money as I agreed to, but they'll give me this much money, and start to change the price. And pretty soon you end up in a mess. Tom and I sold one of those in Crawford County, Iowa one time that had gone down that same path where the people finally pulled out and said, we're going to just go to an auction. But, there was this kind of mess laying behind us and we had to clean up those crumbs. That can be a real, real messy deal. And that's one of the reasons I really think that you need to go get professional advice first from any farmland auction professional and make sure you really know what you're doing going into this process.
We had a really good question coming on Facebook on this same topic from Ian Sparks. He would like to know, what do you recommend if a realtor has a potential buyer for your auction? Do you work with them to benefit everyone?
Hi, Ian. I hope you're doing well.
Ian's here in my area.
Yeah, he is. And Ian, I believe that Ian's himself a real estate agent, sells land.
Yep.
I think for Heartland. I'm not sure, Ian. I don't know if I got that right or not. But, good question. Some auction companies do co-broke on auctions and some don't. In our particular case, we don't. And I'll tell you why. We charge a commission that is fair for our services. We don't charge anything extra just in case an agent does come in and sell the property. Here's what we recommend to you guys. You can go out and find buyers for auctions, and buyers can pay you a commission. Oftentimes, if you were out looking for auction buyers, here's how I would structure a deal with those people is I would, if you had somebody that wanted to buy a farm, present the farm to them and tell them, I'm going to show you a farm and get an idea of what you think this thing would go for. And, if I can get it bought for your price, would you pay me 2% commission, or would you pay me 10% commission, or would you give me 50% commission? I don't know what commission you guys charge, but whatever it is, you can ask them to pay you a commission out of that, and it can come out of the closing no different than it would have. They're just going to add that into their price, and we can do it that way. But we don't split our commission because we don't want to overcharge our sellers that are actually selling with us. So we charge the bare minimum of what we think is fair for our services, and we do that in a way that it doesn't make sense for us to split it. So that's what I would do. I mean, we welcome agents. We've had several times where agents have introduced people to our properties. Their buyer paid them to introduce them to it. And it just all became a part of the transaction. So you certainly can make a commission on the auctions that way.
And this is definitely something you and I do ourselves, Jason. You and I represent people in a buyer situation at other auctions. They want representation to understand how the auction's being conducted, to make sure they understand the whole process. And never have we asked those other auction companies or auctioneers if we could get a commission, because we all understand that how that works and so forth. And when they come to us, we just tell them, are you willing to pay us a percentage to represent you at the auction? It's nothing that's going to be up front. It can all go into closing fees, and that's when I get paid when everybody else does. So I tell everybody that asks me if there's a co-broke in it, charge your buyer.
Right. And for them, it just comes down to being a business decision. It's just economics, really. And, you and I do go out and buy farms for people, where people have asked us to represent them in auctions. We just show up and we bid for them, and we have a commission agreement with those people. And people hire us to go bid on auctions simply because we understand the process very well. We know what the auctioneer is doing. We know the best way to make sure that they are getting the best deal possible at an auction, if there is such a thing. But we're not trained to do that. Certainly, we have lots of education and experience doing it. And that counts for something in the ability to go bid on these things. So it does. And Ian, I mean, you're always welcome to introduce people to our auctions. Just the buyer will have to pay you, because we do make sure that we charge our sellers a very fair commission, that, there's just not enough there to split for us. It's not that we're averse to actually having somebody bring somebody in, because we're not. We'd love to work with you anytime.
And thank you for that question, Ian. Again, if anyone watching has any questions, just pop them in the comments. We kind of answered this earlier when we were talking about who should a seller talk to first, but I don't know if you want to touch on it briefly. But is it better to list land privately first or hold an auction, or what's the right way to go about things?
We always run into this when we meet with a client, and we've kind of talked about it early on here. Jason and I both have, and they feel like they want to do a listing before an auction. And I can tell you, just about 98% of the people that I walk into and meet that are thinking of listing, by the time I walk out, we're doing an auction agreement. And I'll tell you why. A listing comes out, and it's what we feel we would like for it. And usually that's a really high price. And sometimes you can come out with that and it's a high price. You stick the sign in the ground, and the neighbors start seeing it and talking about it. And they see what the listing for, and they say, Joe down the road, he's got his farm listed, and he's got it listed for $9,000 an acre. Wow, John, he's looking to get rich on that. So he's put a price on that. He's capped it to where the auction, we're starting, we know from doing the auctions and seeing statewide farms selling kind of the market. We know the market, where they're going to be at, where a safe spot to be is. But with an auction, we don't really know the cap. We don't know the top. We don't know the emotions that an auction creates, and that fear of losing what somebody's willing to pay. So you've never priced that farm for them. And, they really become the judge of themselves to find out what it's worth.
I agree with Tom's answer is right on. In our ebooks, and I've written about it many times, I believe an auction is the best first choice. I've had so many people argue with me about that, but look, I've sold some 500-600 farms now in my life. I've seen farms priced in every imaginable way. As far as I'm concerned, there's 3 ways to sell farms. Number one, private listing. Number two, through an auction. Number three, through instant offers or an immediate offer. We can help people in either of those three ways. We're licensed land brokers, but I really truly believe that if a person wants to sell a farm, a quality farm without any type of issues. Now, low quality farms will be a little bit different story. I'm answering more on tillable, higher quality farms than that, 50 CSR and above. That if you go to an auction first, you have more control over the price, which seems really odd, but that really is the case in auctions. You have more control over the price and you have more control over the end result. You also don't price the farm. Auctions start low and they move up. Listings start high and they move down, and both of them will find the market price. It really makes no sense to have a listing, to go out and put a higher price on it than you're willing to accept, and try and find your way down, because instantly you're going to turn off probably 25% of people that are never going to look at it again. They're going to say they're crazy. And then you're going to be wasting your time. And I don't know what the value of money is worth to any individual or one particular person, but they're going to be sitting on that thing on the market, wasting time. With an auction, you know exactly which day something's going to sell. You can plan your schedule a whole lot better, especially if your schedule's financially related or you have some sort of a financial goal that you're trying to achieve. An auction certainly becomes better. Now, the problem with switching from a listing to an auction really becomes, now when you get to the auction, you have too many preconceived notions out there. Number one is price. And I said it earlier, never price a farm and let people talk about it. Once it goes from listing to auction, people say, oh, they're desperate. They couldn't get it sold, so they're going to do an auction. And that's the wrong thing to have out there. You don't really want that, people thinking those types of things, because it's not true, first of all. But number two, it gives them the idea that they're going to be able to buy it really cheap. And if you're trying to sell a farm, that's not the mindset you want your buyers to have, is that they can buy it really cheap. You want them to have that hope with an auction, but you want to go to the auction first, because as we see with our live auctions, with our land auctions, people's minds will adjust as time goes on in terms of value. One thing I really love about online auctions is that we start bidding on day one, and bidding goes on for 30 days. And as they watch it accelerate and they watch it climb, as a buyer, they begin to adjust their mind. Now, in a live auction environment, you have like 30 minutes with those bidders to change their mind. And with a online auction, you have 30 days to change their mind. And that has been really, really good for our clients. So as time moves on, they get into week 2, week 3. Now they wake up on auction day with an online land auction, and it's already at, like yesterday, for example, it's already at $8,700 an acre. They wouldn't have learned that information in a live auction until 20 minutes into it, and there was only 10 minutes of the auction left. In this case, with an online auction, they've still got hours left to reconsider, to call the banker, to talk about it, to drive down the gravel road and think, wow, that farm would mean a lot to our operation. I'm not going to let price stand in the way. I'll go one more time. And pretty soon they begin talking themselves into doing that. And that becomes the price discovery of an auction. And that's the reason that I believe selling an auction is the best way to do it, because you have all of those things that you don't really have in a listing. I say this all the time. With a listing, you start at zero. The first guy shows up, he makes an offer, you kick him out the door because it wasn't enough money. And then the next buyer comes in and you start back at zero again. And then the third buyer comes in and you start back at zero again. With an auction, you're always building on top of what you have. You're taking your progress and you're moving it up a notch. With every bid, you take your progress and you move up a notch. That's the beautiful thing about auctions. That's why Farmland does so well at auctions, is because of that.
Some things that I want to add to that too, Jason, before we end on this topic. One thing that a lot of my clients like when we tell them that is, the listing, kind of what you were talking about. Everybody comes in and it's a different situation. We'd offer you this, but we want this back from you. Where the auction, we're spelling out, this is our auction. This is how we're offering it to you. This is how we're playing. To where it's all out there. Everybody knows it's a level playing field. Everybody knows how they're bidding, how they're buying, how the farm is being sold. To where that private negotiating, it's every time somebody comes in, it changes. We'll do this, you do that type of situations. And also back to the online auction or even a live auction, you know, in 30 days from where you signed a contract, 30 to 45 days, whether you're going to have a farm going to closing in another 30 days. It's not a long drawn out process. And that's another thing a lot of the sellers really appreciate is there's a definite time. And Jason, we're running like 98% accurate of selling them. There's a time that they know it's going to end. They're going to find out whether it's sold or whether it's not. And that is a huge relief to those sellers. It's not a constant worry and fret when it could happen. It's 30 days. They know whether it's going to happen or not.
And transitioning from auction to listing is much more natural than transitioning from listing to auction. You know, it, like I said, you have much more control over the price that way. And you don't have people with the thoughts of, oh, they're desperate sellers. They took it clear to the end. They couldn't get it sold. So they're just going to have an auction. Saying having an auction shouldn't be a bad thing. Anybody that's bought farmland at an auction knows that if they were ever going to sell, that's probably where they're going to do it, because negotiating them oftentimes just doesn't have the momentum that an auction does. Private negotiation's never going to have that momentum. People always say, well, I can just put a price on it and tell them what I want to pay for it. That's fine. But the reality is, if they were a competitor in the auction, you probably chose a number to negotiate with them that was below what they were willing to pay. So in other words, if they agreed to pay you $9,500 an acre in an auction, they probably were willing to pay more than that. You didn't choose their top dollar when you negotiated with them. You didn't just magically pick the highest number they were willing to pay, even if you did negotiate with them.
So I want to try to keep this at about an hour, just for the sake of everybody's time. But just a couple more questions. We have about 10 minutes left. We're talking a lot about our online land auctions versus live land auctions. Is there anything else anybody wants to add about the difference we're seeing between online land auctions and live land auctions?
I can go first. I think the one biggest thing that I see, let's kind of break it down. The first thing, let's talk about the client themselves. The biggest thing that the client is going to see and recognize is the reduced stress in an online auction versus a live auction. They're going to have a much smoother process. In addition to that, they're also going to see lower fees and lower commission for an online auction. And for a reason, we no longer have to pay the cost of the venue, any type of refreshments, any of those things, the travel that's required back and forth, sometimes the motel rooms and stuff associated with those things, that is going to cost them less money to do that. And we're going to charge less commission for it because we're going to be using more technology. That said, there's no difference in the advertising of the marketing from a live auction. And Kristen, you do all of our advertising. Is there one difference in the type of advertising we do from live to online?
There is not. The only thing I can think of is the auction packets for a live land auction, but those are all found online as well. Does anybody have anything? Oh, go ahead.
No, and I apologize. Mine locks up on my end every once in a while, so I have to wait until it clears up. But that said, there's no difference in the advertising. You know, I talked a lot about the stress, the difference. We had an online land auction yesterday, and it just kind of was a timely experience for this. We're in this health crisis. Everybody stayed home. Everybody bid online. All of our documents are signed electronically. So, you know, that deal was out the door in just a couple of hours, and nobody ever went face to face with anybody, and they didn't have to. Though I do want to talk about one big difference of why I think buyers perform differently in online versus live auctions. There's tons of scholarly research that you can find about bidding online. They began doing studies on eBay years and years ago. But here's what I believe in land auctions. When you have a community that comes together to bid on a particular asset, farmland, for example, it can turn into sort of a fiasco when you have live land auctions. Tom and I know the tricks that people use to come into live land auctions, and trying to either intimidate or put guilt trips on other people so that they won't bid against them. We've seen the discussions in the back of the room. We've seen the finger pointing. We've seen the arguments and the fights. Hey, if you bid against me on this farm, I'm going to bid against you on that farm. We've seen where the tenant comes and sits in the front row so everybody can see that he's bidding, so that everybody behind him won't bid against him. And it's our job as professionals that are out here to protect people's financial interests to thwart that in every possible way we can. I said earlier on, one of the defining principles of Dream Dirt is a safe place for sellers to go and sell a farm. And that is really the reason that I believe in an online land auction, people perform better as bidders. I believe that all of that social friction is removed from the process, and I believe that all bidders are allowed to bid to their full and maximum potential without the intimidation, without the social pressures and that friction in that room. I believe that in our particular online auctions, the way we do it using bidder numbers and not names, nobody knows who is bidding against who. And that's the best way to do it because you're discovering the full market value and people's potential at that point. Nobody can look around the room again and give somebody eyes and, give them the gruff look like don't bid against me again. None of that stuff happens in an online auction. And that's the reason I truly believe that we've had such exceptional results. We came into doing the online land auctions and a lot of people scoffed at it and said, this is, that's never going to work. Farmland auctions will never go online. And we've proven different. It is absolutely probably one of the best ways to sell a farm now. There's nothing wrong with a live auction. I'm nothing against them. Just know that those things do happen in live auctions. It's a reality, isn't it, Tom? We run into those things very often.
Yes. And like you've said earlier on, we are fair with all of our customers, but our client is where our interest is. And when you come to us and you hire us to sell a farm, we want you to know that your interest in the best price is what we truly have in our hearts and want to achieve for you.
Awesome. Well, as we kind of wrap up, I just want to let anybody know watching, you can still ask questions. I have one more question for the admin team here. We're talking a lot about online land auctions, but Dream Dirt does so much more than land auctions. We're selling equipment on our farm bid auction. We've started this angler auction. We take bids.com. Why doesn't somebody on the team or anybody can chime in, kind of plug the other things we have going on here at Dream Dirt?
Absolutely. We have our land is our main source, but we also do live machinery estate sales or live retirement sale. We do one piece at a time through our live consignment auctions where we have one coming up here in Winterset that's going to be conducted a little different because what we're facing. But we also have our one piece at a time through our farm bid platform that is every Thursday at 2:00. So, we're not only just land, but we sell machinery and that stuff as well. Then Rachel or Nicole could pipe in here a little bit more for we take bids, what we offer on personal property. And so we're really a one-stop shop to help solve a lot of those problems for our clients.
I'll go ahead and talk a little bit on that too, Tom, and I agree. Dream Dirt fulfills a lot of different roles. And when we first kind of started out, we started out basically farmland and machinery. And we had recreational stuff that showed up on machinery, and we had personal items that showed up on machinery. And to best suit all of our clients' needs, we kind of branched out onto individual platforms to meet those specific people's needs and to be able to advertise for them specifically so that we can bring the best amount possible for their assets. So when it comes to like the new thing that we're doing right now, it's not brand new to us, but it's a new branch that we're focusing on, is the personal property, such as what's inside the homes of the acreages that we sell. Those guys have that need to be able to sell that property. And so we take bids, and that allows us to say, okay, so like the one that we're dealing with right now has tons of antiques and all sorts of things in the home that we're selling, which doesn't really relate to just farmland. So that way we can advertise for those people and still meet those needs. Our anglers auction, where we have boats and RVs and fish houses, that is more of our recreational, so we can have those people on that type of a platform. And Rachel, I'll go ahead and turn over the farm bid, and you can talk about that a little bit and how we meet the needs on their end.
Yeah, like Tom said, farm bid is our machinery auction. It's a perpetual auction, so items are always being added and closing Thursdays at 2 p.m. You can find all of our online auctions. I don't think anyone's mentioned it yet, but our online auctions are at bid.dreamdirt.com is where you can go ahead and register and bid on any of our farm machinery auctions or online land auctions. Something else I also do as a role with Dream Dirt is that we like to work closely with other auction companies. We call them our auction affiliates. We built our own online bidding software. We call it Bid Capture. So we built that software, and we work closely with other auction companies that don't quite have the capabilities of bidding online yet, which is kind of crucial in a time like this as well. So if you're listening in and another auctioneer and you're kind of thinking you'd like to add online bidding to your company, to your website, we can surely help you with that. We have Rockingham Auctions in Oklahoma that we work with. I help clerk their live and online auctions over the phone. I went to Oklahoma once to help with a live auction, but the last couple of times I've just helped over the phone. We also have Agvisors in South Dakota. We helped build their bidding online portion of their website. And I kind of help with any tech support that they need with that as well. And we're looking to add some more throughout the Midwest and really help other auction companies with the online bidding, since we've seen it work so successfully, and we're really the pioneers of that online land auctions too. So that's all I really have about the rest of our bidding online platform.
I might add just a little bit to that, guys. I know I've taken my fair share of talking. I apologize for that, but the girls did a really good job of explaining exactly what we do. We have multiple venues that really address any type of an asset. So you can come to us, whether you're liquidating in a state of business, whatever, for whatever the reason might be, and we've got something that fits those types of things. So I think that's all I've got for the day. I might mention one last thing. We always have careers available for those people that are looking for something more in this line, in this space. We'd be more than glad to hear from you.
And thank you everybody for sharing. Thank you everybody for watching. As you all know, these are just a small portion of the questions we know that sellers have. We're always available by phone, by social media, through our website, through email. You can get a hold of us by searching us on Google, find dreamdirt.com, get a hold of us with any of your questions. Read our ebooks. We're happy to send those out, like Rachel said, digitally, or send them through the mail, or just give someone a call to get all of your questions answered. So thanks for joining us for our Facebook Live today. Stay healthy out there. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.